Welcome to the Tech 1-2 podcast today with Nick Stavropoulos, talking about a very important topic and how we bridge the talent gap, especially when we look at technology and MSPs. Welcome back to the studio, Nick.
It's nice to be back. Thanks, John. Happy 2025, everybody.
Yeah, 2025. We're in the 25th year anniversary of EMPIST. It's a very remarkable and a very important year for us as a business. So great to be here. Great to talk about the hiring and talent gap, especially as it relates to technology. So tell us a little bit about what you've seen in the industry, especially when it comes to hiring IT and tech people.
Yeah, it's really a matter of two speeds. We've seen companies who do it really, really well, even if they do it for the first time, and we've seen companies that keep switching their personnel because they can't find the right recipe in order for them to maintain a solid IT service principle in their organization.
Well, when we talk about hiring and the importance of an internal IT versus external, whatever position you're hiring, you have to have just a good practice about hiring and, aligning with whatever's important to the business. Why do you believe it's difficult from an IT perspective? Let's say you're that law firm. A law firm trying to hire an IT person, what challenges would that law firm face?
They will face several challenges. First of all, does that person understand the industry, the technicalities and the systems, and even also the regulations? Because some of these industries are regulated, whether local, state, or federally regulated. That's the one thing. The second thing is, what's the depth of knowledge that this particular individual or individuals have? It's funny, as we ourselves work with many clients who have their own in-sourced IT personnel where we supplement services, I forget the percentage when we had talked about it, a very strong percentage of those IT managers were either somebody who was doing a different position within the organization and they showed some technical aptitude and then eventually they became that IT person, or it's usually the owner's friend's son or a cousin or somebody who went to school for IT or got a couple of years into community college, and because they're good with computers, they just hired them part-time and eventually gave them a full-time job in order to handle their IT needs. But overall, I think the most common challenge that these companies face is that they're thinking about IT in a single lens, from a single corner, and usually that's user support. As we know, traditional support is switching as far as what's top of mind for many individuals, and it's going from, I just need somebody to fix something, to, I need strategy, I need protection, I need foresight, I need somebody who's going to grow with me as I grow my organization, I need somebody to show me something that I do not know, to tackle a challenge that hasn't yet existed in my organization. So we find that many of our clients and people who are non-clients, they're kind of stuck with their IT personnel into how things were done maybe 15, 20 years ago, which is just working under a desk, connecting things and some low voltage stuff.
Yes. Who is the IT guy within the company? It's who has the most knowledge of technology. It could be the controller. It could be the office manager. It's just who can actually plug in the computer. That's how traditionally we've seen a lot of people that were working within corporations, whether, again, the example of the law firm, and who eventually became the IT person and IT manager. They started off like that, where they were wearing multiple hats. But the point of the more holistic side of IT that you just mentioned, yes, traditionally it is end user support. That's been how it's been often looked at. How can a company, when you start looking at strategy, cybersecurity, transformation, how can a company who is a hiring manager at said law firm, how can they assess the skill and if that person can bring that value that firm truly needs in order to grow?
Yeah, it's very dangerous for a non-technical person and a non-IT person, even if they have a senior position or the business owner, to try to understand what is it that they're missing and what gaps they have and try to hire for something that they don't necessarily understand. Give you an example. Let's say it's a manufacturing firm. An example. The owner, the CEO, the controller, the HR person, they're very familiar with what they do as a business, which is manufacturing.
Not IT.
Not IT. So when they're trying to post a position, or before they even post a position, they're trying to figure out, okay, I think this is what we need, Many times they only cover 20 to 30% of the true needs. And sometimes it's actually this type of discussion without an actual expert in the room, it's swaying them to a direction that's going to be eventually catastrophic for them. It's going to cause agony, money, hire their own person, risk to their business, and they might believe that they just outsourcing things by hiring vendors, but usually SaaS vendors, like software vendors, thinking that they're covered, but they really don't build any strategy around what their business needs. So that's the biggest misconception is that, hey, we're the smart guys. We run a business for a while. We know how to do this. We believe this is the best for our business when it comes to the IT needs, and many companies get it wrong.
Yeah, and you look at most owners who are in a non-technical or don't have a technical background or in that type of industry, their scope and spectrum of what technology is very, very limited. It's like, can you fix my phone, my mobile phone? Can you fix my oh, he's an IT expert. And the reality is yes, if that is the owner who is interviewing and hiring for that technical person, the reality is they just can't assess. I mean, it's impossible. You don't know what you don't know, so how can you assess someone on something that you truly don't know about? Let's just say even just the attracting of talent within industry. I mean, we hired a couple dozen people last year in 2024. But just even attracting that type of talent, like get that attention where it is the good talent. Let's say you do find someone in other industries. I mean, we face challenges in our industry as well, but in other industries for our audience, what are some of the things that that they should expect as far as challenges just to even attract, like to get a potentially good candidate to knock on the door? Because I mean, you might say the obvious might be money, but it isn't money. It isn't always money. When it comes to someone who is, they may have other priorities.
Correct.
And money may not be the biggest motivator.
It's not always money. Actually, the past couple of years, money has fallen number 3 in the reason why people in the IT industry switch roles. I'll give you an example. What is it that we do? Because we do IT full time. We have dedicated, almost like a marketing campaign when it comes to looking attractive to people who are looking to join a firm like ours to become an engineer or any other position in our IT services. Within our LinkedIn page, there is everything is very intentional, the way we post and how we post and communicate to attract the people that they're good for us, that they're going to be a good fit, that they have the knowledge that we need within our life pages, the things that we saw as a cool culture, because we have a very cool culture here in the office. And that's very attractive to somebody who's in technology. Traditionally, people in technology, I know we call them as introverts, but they really used to accustom to a certain elitist status because they work perhaps for a few companies and they know, okay, this is a culture that I understand just by looking at people, how they're dressed, how they look, how they smile, just from a still picture, a photo within our LinkedIn pages, they understand that, this is going to be a good cultural fit, which is important for IT people because like we mentioned, some of them are more introverts, some of them are used to working with just similar people around them. So when you trying to attract somebody, and let's say you're a law firm, and all your law page shows is people with ties, very serious, some handshakes, it's just a bunch of legal descriptions and everything. Now this person is trying to say, okay, am I going to be the lone wolf in that corporation? I'm joining a team that maybe I cannot be part of just because I'm not that extrovert. I'm not the person who's going to be dressing up like this. I don't feel comfortable being around people who are dressing up like this or behaving in a certain behavior that's it's explicit to their industry. And now it prohibits them from even applying because they're like, this is not going to work out for me. I won't be able to last there, a few hours, if not, a whole career. So that's very important. Second is the type of interview process that you have set forth for IT people is very different from the interview process that you follow for your traditional people within your industry. You can't follow the same interview process for hiring a lawyer or a machinist if you're a manufacturer or an architect if you're an architectural firm with the IT people. The time span is very small. These interviews need to be conducted very differently. There's also technical part of the interview that has to be administered. That who's going to do that in your organization? Who has the technical acumen to even test somebody to make sure that what they're speaking of they actually can do? And the communication back and forth is different too. So all those three things, right, for how your company appears, what your interview process, and how you communicate might prohibit you from getting the right fit for your company just because of the way the IT professional will view you from outside.
Yeah, I mean, those are all good points. I mean, from a marketing perspective, to just get that attention from them, and then the whole process, if you get somebody who is actually applying, to actually finally get them to a point where you make them an offer and you have them join your team. Depending on the size of the company that we're talking about, let's just look at the small and medium-sized businesses who are considering bringing in an IT professional or that have an existing one. One thing that we do know is we have this generation that is retiring out of the industry. I mean, we've seen it so many times where we're working with a client, whether we're either co-managing the environment or they're looking at some sort of succession plan where they have a retiring individual who's been with that company for a number of years, and now they need to bring in someone new. When they're looking at that, and they're looking at that individual to potentially replace them, how do they even assess? Like, one of the things I've seen is, let's say you're an IT professional trying to join a firm. Oftentimes, if you've had the same person who's been managing it for the last 30 years, the maturity of your technology has a big factor on an IT professional, a technology professional wanting to join that firm because they're like, well, it might be a mixed bag. I don't know what this technology looks like. Just that alone, like how can an employer, a business owner address that gap?
I mean, first of all, you got to know what you have, and you have to be able to explain that environment very well to somebody who is interested in joining that environment. You should have done an assessment before the interview process of these are the gaps that we have. These are the gaps in technology, infrastructure, hardware, software, low voltage connections, and have all that written down, but also how do changes need to be applied based on your knowledge too. And again, you might have a limited knowledge because you're not an IT person, but if you have an IT person that's been there for a long time, you need to hold them accountable to say, okay, we've been here for a long time. You obviously know our environment very well. What are some gaps and things that now as you exiting, as you leaving, or was there a wish list of things that we could have done and we never materialized? So the new person that we're looking to hire will make sure that they have that knowledge so they can close that gap. They have that experience. They know how to do things. And what risk are you leaving behind? What are some things that you're really concerned that, I know we say that as a cliche, what keeps you up at night as an IT professional within my company, but what are some things that you know are vulnerable openings that somebody can take advantage of, and we should have closed them eons ago? It's just because we didn't adapt to it. So clarity is key. It's going to be very fair for the new IT professional who's going to replace somebody who's been there for a long time to completely understand what they're stepping into. Because the last thing you want is get somebody in and then they realize within the first 2 to 3 weeks, that's how easy it is, that they have either a bit more than the chew more than they can bite, or that this is not the right environment for them and they don't have the technical knowledge to.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want them to feel like it's a bait and switch or anything. Yeah. So if a company does find themselves in that type of situation and they're bringing in somebody, I mean, my recommendation would be to have some overlap. To have, if somebody is retiring out, don't wait until December when they retire. Try to add as much overlap. It will be an additional cost to that organization just because they'd be maybe maintaining 2 payrolls if they just had 2 people, but have some overlap there. So the gap, though, when you said it earlier on, which I wanted to come back to, when you said that, there's user support, there's strategy, there's cybersecurity, there's a ton of risk. A lot of decisions are made based on risk. We see this gap. This gap is very significant. It's actually growing much faster. It's not shrink. It's actually growing wider and wider. We're seeing this gap where it isn't I got a guy anymore. I have this IT person. I got the IT guy who is handling all aspects. And maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was like, my IT guy, he can set up my computers. He can plug in the cables. He can get my web page up and running. He can get the server. He can get my email working. But now the specialization required is just growing this gap even wider, that unless an organization is specifically looking for those specialists and not generalists, because it's very hard to find a generalist who's going to handle all things. Identifying those specialists has become extremely difficult, hasn't it?
It has become extremely difficult because people who specialize in things, same thing goes for doctors, for example, they tend to follow that specialization all the way. So they're going to keep evolving and learning more and doing more professional development on that specialty. So if an IT guy is security prone, like he likes security, cybersecurity, what they're going to do is keep investing their knowledge into becoming a CISO something, right? So how can a person who is in that direction, in that directive in their career, fit in a company that also, by the way, still has the needs for the basic stuff?
Yeah.
Right? They still have the needs for somebody to get under the table and fix something. They still have the needs for somebody to solve tickets via ticket user support. They still have somebody that need to go into a server and do some backups and perhaps add more RAM, more memory. Yeah. Or if they have a data center or a closet to be able to work in there with the firewalls and everything. But then when you are saying my top priority is cybersecurity, and let's say you make that as a top requirement of anybody you're going to hire, you might find yourself in a reality that you actually got what you wanted, but only for the specific aspect, but there's a lot of gaps underneath. And bring it back to the example that you gave of a company that had an IT person for the longest time, and we understand that smaller firms, relationships are hard to break. And even though if somebody is not really giving you the optimal product that you want in the IT space, just because they're loyal, they've been there for a long time, maybe they were a family friend or somebody that you knew for a long time, you tend to clean on them. Yep. It's best to actually bring an outsourced company, kind of like us, like EMPIST, and say, guys, I want a full assessment of my environment. With the help of my existing IT guy, I want you guys to come in and do a full assessment because I'm looking to rebuild my team. I'm looking to bring somebody else in, but I really don't trust all the reports that I'm going to get just because I know my current situation, my current IT department is not where it needs to be. Can you guys come in and assess? This does two things, I think, for the owner. Makes them as a third party, accredited third party coming into the business. Yes, it can be invasive, but then the results and the analysis that can come from it, it's eye-open to the point where it might sway their decision away from keep building an internal IT team, and then come to the point where they're like, this is much bigger than I thought, especially now with the introduction of AI and all the stuff that we have. I'd rather keep something small, if anything completely, and then outsource the thing that I know it's necessary for my business, but it's not my business. My business to make tools, to go to court, to heal, to transport things.
Yeah, I mean, look, regardless if you're looking to make a change within the structure of how they operate, I mean, an assessment is a great thing. Even from, we have so many customers where we co-manage the environment. What that means, co-management, is where they have a full internal IT team and we co-manage the environment with them, and we're either filling a particular capacity gap or skills gap with them. Right. The benefit of an assessment is to know what you have. There's so much that you may not know exists, and by getting a third party there who is not managing it, that's very important. The assessment should be done from somebody who is not managing it, because if the assessment is being done from someone who is managing it, then that thing that they saw that was incorrect or bad, they said, well, there's a reason for that. Yeah. So it needs to be a third-party assessment that's done. The point of the cybersecurity, so let's say you do need a specialist. So we know that risk, let's say you're a healthcare organization, you're regulated, you have compliance, you need a true cybersecurity professional. A cybersecurity professional, or anyone, a professional, they want to also be surrounded by other professionals who are like-minded individuals who are also helping uplift them and perhaps even growing their career. So if you're a healthcare organization and you're like, my budget's, I can bring in one person, two people, and I have my help desk person who's handling the user support, and I have my cybersecurity professional who's handling the cybersecurity because we have some regulation, compliance, things that we need to adhere to. Who's that cybersecurity professional then tapping on the shoulder when they have a question or collaborating on? If they don't have other people that around them that also have that same level of skill set, it doesn't have to be equal. Either it could be lower, but also greater to help collaborate on. How does a company address it? They say, I want to bring this internal team. I want to establish this team, but I have budget for 2 people. I know I need end user support. Now it's clear that I need cybersecurity. How can they really invest and build that team to where it needs to be without having a significant amount of turnover within that organization?
Correct. And usually it is a recipe for failure, unfortunately. You will try a few things. You might realize that maybe I need another person, and you bring another person who is cybersecurity minded, and they have some career progression in there, so they can give each other the tasks and share them. Or you might now take somebody who was more technical and trying to make a more overseeing policies. So now you just made somebody something that the intention of hire wasn't there, or somebody who is really good at policy, but they're not good at the technical stuff. And now you're forcing them to go the technical way, and then either they lack the knowledge or they don't remember, or there's resistance. Like, hey, that's not what you hired me for. You hired me for the policy stuff when it comes to cybersecurity. I'm here to communicate with your insurance carriers, architect stuff, build nice plans, but I'm not going to do the dirty work for you. We should hire somebody else to do it. And many business owners at that point say, hold on, I just spent, let's say, $120,000, $150,000 a year to bring this person. And now they give me a recommendation that either we need to hire more people or we need to outsource something that I thought should come with the expertise that I'm paying for. And this happens with any position, but in particular, it happens with roles within an organization that the company sees as just the back roles. These are not official roles that push the company forward because it's not part of your industry and your direction as a company, but they're back roles, necessary things that we need to have. And many make the mistake. Heck, we have made sometimes mistakes like this, where we have hired people where we thought this is the expectation. They had a different expectation of what they wanted to do, and they change it up. And at some point, you're like, okay, we have to amicably part ways. That's, I think, the biggest thing that you have to consider when you're looking to hire something more towards the specialty and not just technical tier 1, tier 2 support, is what is that overall role of that person? And then am I building a Frankenstein model that's going to just be an endless pit of money dropping because, oh, now I need to complement that, I need to supplement that, I need to add that, I need to take that. And then you're building something that is more frustrating as a business owner, as an executive team, where now you have to waste energy and time and effort to take yourself from your operations who are leading the way to go and fix something like that.
Yeah, those are all great points. So obviously, we're in the MSP space. We provide services to organizations. One of the fastest growing services that we offer today is co-managed services, and we love to work with internal teams. When a company is to look at, there's tremendous amount of benefits that we can outline of just an organization. I mean, there's risk, so risk mitigation by partnering with MSP. There's a broad range of knowledge that a company can get, pretty much an immediate influx and injection of a broad range of knowledge. How would you say that, what would you say that the main benefits? Obviously, you're an executive here at EMPIST. You're not a technical resource. You're not doing the technology. Right. Just looking at it from a business perspective, like a business owner's perspective, looking at why would it make sense from your perspective, why a organization should partner with an MSP?
Yeah, I mean, a few things come in mind. The first is peace of mind, right? Peace of mind that I'm actually hiring for many times, since I'm in finance as well, for the salary of one person, one individual, and sometimes even less annually. A team that brings in so many expertise, that have all the tools that I need in my tool belt, but they're completely outsourced, but they still respect and they know my environment, they're going to help me build and secure it. So that's tremendous peace of mind to know that if your insurance company calls one day and says, oh, something's going on with cyber liability insurance, we have to request a couple of documents, you don't have to sweat about it.
Yeah, you're not scrambling.
No. You call your outsourced provider, your MSP provider, who already has a cybersecurity team established, hopefully, within their organization, and you get what you want, and it's done. Secondly, is how much is your time worth as a business owner, right? You're a business owner, you know this, and I have so many times hard time trying to get even 5 minutes from you because your day is so busy with things, whether you're developing something new, product development, you gain more knowledge because you need to bring it back to the organization. You have meetings with clients, with prospects, with vendors, negotiations, contracts, all this stuff. What else do you want to add on your plate as far as the worry, right? So it's very important to understand that, yes, you're going to outsource it. Yes, you're outsourcing to a whole company that, man, maybe they won't get me, they won't understand me, but you got to be willing to make a compromise. And compromise is the third piece. Compromise is everything in business. But compromise, don't look at it as something that's going to be a deficit to you, but it's collaboration. That collaboration, as we have talked many times, is a new currency where you need to you need to collaborate with people who are going to add bricks in your business without them being officially part of your business. They're partners, but they're outsourced partners, and allow them to build the bricks of the wall that you're trying to build for your business without them being on your balance sheet, your income statement, and your cash flow statement.
Yeah, so there's a number of benefits. I mean, the financial, the peace of mind, the operational improvements, efficiencies that can be driven. I mean, scaling with the business. So, right. Very similar. It reminds me of when, let's just say 10 years ago, a decade ago, when we speak with clients and we talk to them about the cloud and they felt like, my equipment needs to stay within the four walls of my premises and, it's my data and this is the only way that we can operate. And all those same clients, the majority of them, I won't say all, have now done some sort of cloud transformation and now they love it. It's going to the next level at times. And whether you're doing that internally or externally, your technology program, IT program has to mature for your business to grow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's extremely important to do. And you don't want to become, extinct and, just keep the standard, the norm, because then there's a lot of comfort that happens, a lot of things that sink in, a lot of bad things that can happen to the business.
100%. I mean, just as an example, yourself and other individuals within our organization, they go to a fair amount of conferences and symposiums every year where knowledge has been shared about where the future is and where things are going just in our industry, right? So again, I'm assuming the business owners that we're talking about who are not in IT, but they have a need for IT within their business, they're doing the same thing. So if you're going to keep up with all that knowledge that comes in IT, it'll be impossible to also do the knowledge and the forward thinking for your regular business and the products that you make. So collaborating with a company, and not every company is equal, okay, yes. In every industry. So we have to make sure we say that. But we take pride that we're there at the forefront of every change. We have developed probably a gamma of products that's larger than anybody, definitely in the Chicagoland area, but one of the best in the country, because we're there. We're there with every change. I know you fly all over the country and you invest time and money, and that comes with a sacrifice, of course. But then the benefit is that we have the latest and greatest knowledge about where things are going. And also it's good to have a foresight of the future that you can share with clients that, oh, I never thought about that. I wonder where else that's going to impact my operations outside of IT.
Yeah, I believe the future holds organizations should really be looking at an either co-managed solution with professionals that can help support and grow their business from technology perspective, or even just outsourcing it. I mean, I think that it's too much risk. If I try to think of myself, if I'm the executive director of a nonprofit, or I'm the name partner of a law firm, or I'm the owner of a generational manufacturing facility, and I'm thinking about it, and you said it early in our conversation that focus on what you do best. So if I was in any one of those industries, I should be focusing on what I do best. Technology probably isn't one of those. So if the investment was made to build an internal team, that team may be stagnant. In the way that you can, again, inject like an immediate, energy into that business is you can co-manage it or potentially even outsource it.
Exactly. And, it comes back to when we talked about who really works for you, what the path to the position where they're in right now has been, again, historically. It's a different environment, like you mentioned, having a closet with a server and a firewall and everything connected within the four walls. And now you even been pushed by your own vendors. Let's say you're a manufacturer, to be on the cloud, to have things that they're all over the place for security, for access purposes. Maybe you have employees who also work in other parts of the country or the world, and it's very hard to go and connect back to a physical server in your location. But for many reasons, it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
So now, the type of expertise that takes to manage now this environment many times is very different.
Yeah.
Exactly. Very different. And that's just one small example of how archaic some of the systems that we see in clients and prospects that we go in. We're like, where have you been the last 15 years, right? Yeah. Forget the risk. Risk is number one, but just in general, not risk as far as so much somebody hacking into that server, but the risk of collapse in stagnant data. So
you mentioned the technology. We walked into a very reputable firm in the Chicagoland area that has a very large staff, and they were running NT 4.0 as a server. So yes, I mean the skills change; they have to evolve. There's ways that can be mitigated through bridging this gap. I really appreciate having you in the studio today.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts for the audience?
Yes. The biggest thing that not everybody considering right now is regulatory changes. Regulatory changes not coming just from the industry, from the insurance industry, because those are here and they're here to stay. And many business owners, we have to be aware. Talk to your CPA, talk to your IT manager if you have one internally, talk to your MSP firm and the firm that does your IT support. What regulatory changes are coming that directly correlate perhaps to insurance or some other aspects of your business. But the most important thing is we all heard about blockchain and the blockchain networks and everything that's here, but it's going to be even more prevalent when we go 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the line. You can't do it alone. You have to partner with people. You have to partner with people who actually understand and they go and get that knowledge, as we talked about a few minutes ago, and they bring it back. But know that the regulatory risk is going to overshadow any other potential risk, including cybersecurity, that you might have for your business. We've seen this. We talk about regulations and changes all the time. And as we change in governments and things are coming into play and global forces and things and wars, they're going to even impose different regulations where overnight your whole process for handling your IT will be obsolete.
Yep.
And that's the biggest risk. The second is, do not be afraid to collaborate. If you haven't gotten a second opinion of what's the health and the strength of your overall IT posture, do it.
Yep.
Call somebody like EMPIST, anybody that you know, but they better be reputable, and ask them, I want a complete truth, even if it hurts. Show me all my pains, show the things I have to change, but then also make a plan for me so I can understand. Can I handle this alone? Can I handle this internally? What are the next steps for me?
Yeah, don't come to me with a problem and not a solution.
Exactly.
So yes. So there's clear ways why partnering with an MSP could be a great strategy for businesses as they look at how do they, upskill and up-level their talent, not just in 2025, but also in the future. So
for sure.
I just want to thank you once again for being in the studio. Always a pleasure. Thank you to our listeners for listening in. I encourage you to subscribe to our channel so that you can get notifications on all future releases of our podcast as well. So thank you so much, Nick.
Thank you. And let's have a fantastic 2025. Cheers to everybody. I wish you nothing but success and everything. Be mindful who you partner with. Always ask the tough questions and don't be afraid of change.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks, John.